Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final part in the Census module. I'm just going to cover 4 quick fictional scenarios. Some of them are relatively quick, others may take a little more time to explain. So, first one, this is DC Statehood, so the thing that the Democrats are doing. What it does is give the city of Washington its own state. It's very unconstitutional, and I can go in later into detail on why it is. Has a little bit to do with the electoral votes that DC has at the moment. So what happens? The city has about 700,000 people, which is not enough to get 2 congressional districts. Instead, it just gives them 1. That 1 district has to go from somewhere, and it's Minnesota. So what happens? Minnesota loses 1 seat, and that moves to DC. So the main thing here is that DC, outlined here, gets 1 House seat, which is safe Democrat, and 2 Senate seats, which are safe Democrat. And with the outline of the vote in that particular case, the Democrat always wins by a margin of 70-80%, something like that. So the reason why the Democrats want to do this is not because of the House seat. It helps, but it doesn't do much. It's because of those 2 Senate seats, giving them a majority. That's all there is to it. Alternatively, DC can be added to Maryland. Similarly, the southwest of the District of Columbia initially was part of DC, but now it's Virginia. Arlington comes to mind. So they gave that back to Virginia. Alternatively, that can also be done in the case of Maryland. So what happens then is DC, those 600,000 people will then be added to Maryland, which gives them an extra congressional district. Once again, this one goes from Minnesota. So it'll look like this instead. Pretty easy, right? Puerto Rico. This is another one which is in the statehood category. If you watch Sticks, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So what happens? Puerto Rico has about the same number of people as Nevada. And I'll show you that because this is the census data. So we have Nevada, 3.1 million people. Puerto Rico, 3.3 million. So they get the same number of electoral votes. But Puerto Rico is prioritized when they gain an extra 1. I think that Iowa might be a little more comparable. Well, it's basically the same thing. Utah. Utah is actually quite close. It's only 10,000 people. So I think a comparison between Puerto Rico and Utah is a little better. In terms of population, in terms of makeup regarding congressional districts, you should look towards Nevada instead. So what happens? They get 4 congressional seats. And the last 4 in the redistricting cycle was Minnesota, California, Colorado, and Montana. So those 4 seats would move to Puerto Rico. Now, I can also draw a district, draw the districts for Puerto Rico. Here's the thing though, we don't have any partisan makeup data, so at the moment there's no indication of whether it's going to be 4 Democrat seats or 4 Republican seats. The current congressman for Puerto Rico, and I need to verify this really quickly, but it should be a Republican, actually. Yeah, that's inaccurate. So we have non-voting delegates, and there should be 1 for Puerto Rico. No, of course not. Yeah, whatever. I really we should just US House. Oh, it only is every 4 years. So the PNP is the New Progressive Party. This is a Republican-aligned political party, which is Jennifer Gonzalez, and I can tell you this. See, affiliating with the Republican Party. So PNP is Republican. Then we have the governor, who is also PNP. So it's a Republican governor, albeit with a slim margin of about 17,000 votes. So Puerto Rico has a Republican congressman and has a Republican governor. We'll look at this, and it's actually a very evenly split. So we can indicate that it's going to be a swing state variety with Puerto Rico. So it isn't going to be as partisan as people think, like New Mexico. It's actually going to be a little more like Nevada, where you have individuals voting a bit randomly, I would say. So, don't care about this anymore. So, Puerto Rico, we're done. And here's the meat and bones. And this is the funny one, in my opinion. This is the fallout category, in which we annex our northern neighbors, Canada. So, Alberta is about 4.07 million people. That will give them 5 congressional seats. British Columbia has 4.6 million, get 5 congressional seats. Labrador gets 1. Of Manitoba gets 2. Newfoundland gets 1. And we just go a little further here, because this is basically the comparison. So, Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories. And here's 14 counts. And why is that? Because I split Newfoundland and Labrador into 2 separate states. Because I think that's a little more fair. So, Alberta gets 5 House seats, British Columbia gets 5, Labrador, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Northern Western Territories, Nova Scotia, Nunavut, Prince Edward Island, Saskatchewan, and Yukon, they each get 1 seat. Ontario gets 16, so it's basically the size of Pennsylvania. Quebec gets 10 congressional districts, and Manitoba gets 2. And there are a bunch of states that lose a lot of districts. California loses 6 for an example, Texas loses 4. So it becomes a little more fairly minded. Here's the fun part though. I haven't drawn a congressional map for this, or I should say an electoral map for this, but if you do apply it, and you apply it evenly, let's say anyone who votes for the Conservative Party, or the People's Party of Canada, so that's the 2 conservative parties, you add those votes together, and you add the votes of all other parties together, you'll find that Alberta goes to the Republicans, every other one goes to the Democrats, and you'll find that, once again, the problem is that the Rust Belt, so Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, they are the ones who are deciding the Electoral College. Again. So, whichever scenario we take, it is always those 3 states. Always. That's funny. There isn't really much further to talk about. And this is also the conclusion of the model. Everything there is to discuss, I have discussed. Further down the line, I can make maps for each of these states. And it's 50 states, 50 videos, basically. So I can do that. Same thing goes with the House maps and State Senate maps and that kind of stuff, so I can do all of that. That's not an issue. The issue is whether people are interested in it. That's a different story. And whether the views are there for it. So this concludes the census model, the entire project. If there's anything else you need clarification on, we can do that. Just send in your questions in the comments. I'll get to them as quickly as possible, and if it warrants another video, I'll make a video of it. So thank you kindly. Share the video if you liked it, that kind of stuff. You know what the drill is at this point. Thank you kindly. Have a great day. Cheers.